Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar, Employee Training Why Short Video Gets Big Results. My name is Jessica. I'm on the marketing team with Biz Library, and I'll be the host for today's session. Before we get started, I want to go through just a couple of housekeeping items. First, what you should see on your screen. On the left-hand side of the screen, this is the webinar viewer, so this is where you'll see the content that we're sharing with you today. On the right-hand side of the screen, this is the control panel, so this is where you can join the audio portion of today's webinar, and you can also communicate with us through the question box. The default mode for the control panel is for it to collapse. If you want to open the control panel back up, simply click the orange box with the white arrow in it, and it'll expand for you. All of today's attendees are in listen-only mode. You can join the audio portion of today's webinar either through the teleconference line. You can also listen through your speakers. If you're going to listen through your speakers, I recommend either using a pair of headphones or a headset to get the best audio quality. We like to keep things pretty informal, so if you have any questions or discussion points, feel free to send those over through the question box that's located within the control panel. I like to weave the questions in as it relates to what we're discussing in the webinar, and then I'll also leave some time at the end for Q&A. I am recording today's webinar, so I'll make a link to the webinar recording as well as the slides and follow-up information available on our blog after today's session. So that's bizlibrary.com/bizblog. Also, if you'd like to download the slides for today, I've put a link to them in the chat panel on the right-hand side of your screen. Happy to say that today's session has been approved for 1 hour CE credit for all of you HR professionals attending. I'll make a link to the completion certificate available at the end of today's webinar. I'll also send a link to the completion certificate in a follow-up email that you'll receive within 24 hours. So look out for that follow-up email. It'll include a link to the certificate as well as the recording and the slides. Again, my name is Jessica. I'm on the marketing team with Biz Library. I've been working in the training and development industry for about 5 years. I'm very active in social media, so I tweet on behalf of Biz Library at Biz Library and also at my own account at Jess L. Petrie. I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn, so I like to share a lot of articles and discussions around human resources, training and development, and marketing. So if you're on either of those social networks, would love it if you'd reach out and connect. Presenting with us today is Chris Osborne. Chris is the VP of Marketing for Biz Library. Chris has also worked in a consulting capacity with a Paris-based leadership development organization where he helped organizations design and implement leadership and executive development programs. He's been performing learning, development, and training functions formally since 2000 and informally for organizations since 1987. Prior to Chris's move into the business sector, he practiced law in the areas of labor, employment, and business litigation for over 12 years. He graduated from WashU School of Law with honors in 1987. Chris is also active in social media, so you can find him on Twitter at Chris Osborne STL, and he's also active on LinkedIn, so I'm sure he'd love it if you'd reach out and connect as well. Just to give you a little bit of background on Biz Library is a leading provider of online employee training and e-learning solutions. The award-winning content library contains more than 7,000 online employee training videos covering every training topic. So things like communication skills, leadership and management, sales and customer service, compliance training, safety training, desktop computer skills, and more. Additionally, Biz Library's LMS and social learning technology platform help HR and training leaders improve and manage employee learning. All right, so enough about us. I have a quick poll question to kick things off for today. So you should see the poll pop up on your screen in just a minute. So how are you incorporating video into your learning programs? Is it A, for new employee onboarding, B, for internal communications, C, performance support and foundational knowledge, D, all of the above, or E, not incorporating video yet?
I was actually talking there, Jessica, but I had forgotten to unmute myself. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's quite all right. What did you say?
I'm
good.
I just said, hey, how are you doing? And I realized, wait a minute, she's not responding. I'm still muted, so there you go.
Well, glad to have you unmuted. I'm doing well, Chris. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So, yeah. So excited to have people here with us today. This is a topic that's near and dear to our heart, for sure.
Yep, it's all about video, right?
Yeah, it is, and I'm always fascinated by the answers to this question because when we first started doing this webinar, we we didn't have many people using a lot of video. There was some, I will admit that we had some, but we don't see, I mean, in today's response is fairly indicative of what we've gotten the last couple times we've done this webinar in terms of the volume of people not incorporating video yet. But if I remember right, the first time we did this, it was more like 40 or 45% of our audience wasn't incorporating video at all, and that's not the case today so far anyway.
I mean, it's almost gone full circle. So if you think about, well, Biz Library started as business training library. We actually rented out like training DVDs. So that was kind of what everyone was doing. You got a training DVD and you used it every year, and that was that. That was your training program. And then it was all about e-learning, you know, kind of the slide, click to play kind of thing. And then it's kind of come full circle, specifically with short form video. So a lot of more people are incorporating that into their training programs.
No, that's fair.
Yeah. All right, cool. I'll go ahead and close out the poll, share the results with everyone. So it looks like we've got 38% said some or all of the above, 21% said for new employee onboarding, 12% said internal communication, 10% performance support and foundational knowledge, and 19% aren't incorporating video yet.
Yeah, interesting results. I mean, I love the fact that, 40% almost or some or all of the above. So yeah, and Jessica's right. It's fascinating that the first versions of, the old-fashioned CBT, computer-based training were primarily video-based, and that's kind of what we're back to. But the video that we see today is a lot different than the video training that we started with. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, so there are 3 high-level things that we hope that you'll take away from today. Chris, I'm going to pass ball to you. You can outline those for us, and we can keep going.
Right, and my viewer says you're on the right slide. Is that right?
You are.
All right. I'm using the tool a little better these days.
You are. So. That was smooth. Nice job.
Okay, hey, you know what? I'm learning. I watched the video on this. So
Good.
Good stuff. All right, so we have 3 high-level things we want to cover today, and Jessica and I kind of joke around about this a little bit, but we've kind of come full circle with the use of video in training, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, the rise of the old sort of slideware e-learning, traditional interactive e-learning, it certainly had its place. And there was a time when that was thought to be kind of state of the art, but we've learned a lot about online training and the effective use of various types of tools to reach people online. And video works. Anyway, we're going to spend some time talking to you about why it works. So there's a sound business case for incorporating video into employee training program. We wouldn't be talking to you about this if it was just a feel-good measure. It isn't just that. There are business-based reasons that impact in a positive way our bottom line for incorporating short video, particularly short-form video, into our training programs. The other element of this, which is vitally important to talk about and begin to really embrace and begin to understand, is how effective short-form video is as a training tool. This is the piece of this that the more I've personally and professionally begun to explore this subject matter, I am all in on this. This is not something that I was really prepared to embrace at the level that I have, but the evidence and the data is overwhelming on this point now. And then we want to talk to you about some best practices for how you can begin incorporating short-form video into your training programs and initiatives. And we've got a couple of really interesting case studies and some very specific examples to share with you today. So this isn't theoretical. It's not something that you need a huge amount of expertise or unique skill set to do. It's something that all of us can execute and get at. So that's the part of this that I think is it's the other piece of this that I think is so exciting. This is very tangible and very realistic. So, but let's start with just video as a foundational tool for communication. And if you really kind of think about it, we are all professional video watchers. We all watch a lot of video. Whether you want to admit it or not, we do. According to Nielsen, the average American over the age of 2, so it's a lot of us, spends more than 34 hours a week watching live television, and another 3 to 6 hours, so it's over 40 hours a week, watching recorded programs. Now, it's easy to assume, and I did this when I first saw this study, that this was millennials, and that it lets people my age, I'm a baby boomer, lets me off the hook. Turns out that's not the case. Actually, turns out that people of my demographic actually watch more television than younger people. This is how we take in information. This is our medium of choice. This is how we're sort of wired to interact with the world today. It's, again, not bad, not good. It's just the way that it is. Now, so you've got this heavy reliance upon video. This is sort of what we do a lot of during the course of the week. We watch a lot of video, be it TV or online, but we are looking at a lot of video. And then, so layer that on top of our average workday. It was an interesting study done by University of California, Irvine, found that workers average about 11 minutes over the course of their workday between interruptions, 11 minutes. Now, think of your own workday. Just think about it. Does this feel about right? I know in my day, it's probably less than this, but here lately I've been wearing 2 leadership hats here in marketing and sales, and I'm interrupted more frequently than that lately. But think about your workday. I know Jessica works remotely, and I guarantee you she's interrupted at least every 11 to 15 minutes, be it an email, a phone call, a text message, an IM. Just think of all the different ways that your workday gets interrupted. Does this feel about right? I think it's probably the case. And the thing about this, too, is these 11 minutes, these interruptions, this time that we have on task, it's spent doing tasks that require less and less time. We're asked to do things that take, on average, 3 to 5 minutes. So we're not working in blocks of time frequently. We're not working in blocks of time of 3 or 4 hours. Now, I think Jessica and I might be exceptions in a way that prove the rule. A big part of our work week is spent building a lot of content, presentations, writing, drafting, researching, which does allow us the luxury of spending a large block of time. But for most employees, and I will tell you here at Biz Library this is the case, most of the tasks that employees have to perform are much shorter. Again, not bad, not good, but it's just the work world that we're in today. And then you start to think about, the sort of video bias now, I think is the best way to put it, that we all have, and sort of the places that we can go to find things. YouTube is just ubiquitous. It is the second most heavily trafficked website out there, second only to Google, and now Google owns YouTube. But importantly, it's also the most second used search site. And if you just do a search on how to, Jessica, you put this slide together. I'm going to let you explain it because this is a great illustration.
Right. So I mean, if you think about how many times that you'll just search Google or YouTube for how to do something. So whether that's how to close a pool for the winter, how to tie a bow tie, or in this case, I don't know why these came up first. Honestly, it was kind of a coincidence, but I'm sure it was something around something that I searched in the past. No idea. But 10 how-to pranks for the home and office. Like how relevant is that? So I mean, there's pretty much anything that you would need. How-to videos, whether they're all credible or from trusted sources. You never know. So there's more than just like cute cat videos or funny dog videos. While we do enjoy them, but kind of it's limitless. And 200, what is that? 203 million results for how to.
Yeah.
So
203 million how-to videos. Unbelievable.
right.
That's
So
incredible.
right. And I don't think anyone's surprised. I mean, we all use it. Like looking at the popularity of it, I don't think anyone's surprised.
No, I wasn't at all. And, and to your point, Jessica, it's not all vetted and subject matter expert created, but I still find some pretty interesting things. And we've talked about this before. One of my favorite training videos, one of my favorite sort of transfers of knowledge is that hilarious video, Death by YouTube, or Death by PowerPoint, that I found on YouTube. I love that video. I recommend that to anybody that's thinking about presentations and how to get their hands around sort of what not to do kind of thing. I love that video, and I found that on YouTube. So there's good stuff out there. It's not that it's all silly stuff. It's really good stuff. This is a great quote from Gunnar Johnson. He's Google's advertising research director. So, Google wants to rule the world, but I love this quote. For the first time, an entire generation has grown up watching content on their own terms. This generation is defined by the internet, mobile and social, consuming content when and where they want. And guess what else they're doing? They're bringing these behaviors and these expectations with them to work. Cisco studied, this BYOD stands for Bring Your Own Device. The Cisco BYOD Insights report from 2013 talked about Americans that bring their smartphones, their devices to work. 9 out of 10 of them that have them use them for work-related purposes. It's not that they just use them at work, but they use them for work-related purposes. The world is shifting right in front of us away from traditional sort of desktop, computer-based, computer-driven delivery of content to content being absorbed on employees' own terms, as Gunnar Johnson would describe it. A generation of people who are used to absorbing content when and where they want on their own devices. This is about content, finding content when and where they want in ways that's most convenient. And most of the content that people are absorbing online is video-based. So where does this begin to move the bottom line for organizations? This was a phenomenal bit of research published by Aberdeen Group. Molly Lombardi wrote this. This appeared in the April-May issue of eLearning magazine. So let me lay a little bit of groundwork for you. These were already sort of high-achieving learning organizations, and what they were studying was in organizations that already had pretty effective learning and development programs, good strategies, fairly good levels of engagement, content being delivered, employees absorbing content. Was there an appreciable difference when they delivered content in a video format? And what they found was, yes, in some very important business areas there was, and they took it a step further. A lot of this content was employee-generated content. So these are organizations that not only delivered video content to their employees, but they allowed employees to share content that they had created with each other. So organizational goals were achieved in 81% of those organizations compared to 76% who did not use video. Employees were rated as more highly engaged in 68% of those organizations compared to 61% who did not, and they found it easier to fill key positions. So, I mean, these are important and interesting business differentiators, and it just was fascinating to me that this really got down to, the difference was, linked to, some of the differences were linked to video use in training. So there is an impact to be had here. And again, I would encourage you to take a look at that, that data in that study. So it kind of gets to a couple of questions, and this gets back to the point I was making earlier when we were talking about things we're going to cover. The compelling information about the how and the why video, particularly short-form video, works so well. There's really two ways to get at this. One is the brain science. Just how is the physiology of the way we take in information and convert information from short-term memory into long-term memory. How does that work? How does that relate to visual information? And how does adult learning theory tie into all of this? And when you kind of blend all of this together, coupled with the way we learn so well from observable behavior, sort of social learning, the case for short-form video is incredibly powerful. Okay, so when we think about sort of the pace at which our minds work in absorbing text compared to the pace at which our minds work absorbing visual information, there is literally no comparison. None. Zero. 3M conducted a fascinating study, collected all this information, but we absorb visual information 60,000 times faster than text, and the physiological, historical reasons for that, we're predatory creatures. That's where we come from. We have to recognize visual clues in our environment. We learn to do that much faster than we learn to read and write. 40% of all the nerve fibers in our body are connected through our retina. It's an incredibly powerful information gathering tool, and we can take in 36,000 visual messages an hour. I mean, these are stunning numbers, but this is data about how this works. And then when you go to the marketing world, there's some interesting research that's been performed in the marketing world, and this ties right into some important things that Jessica and I have to work with all the time, and that is, we don't have a lot of bandwidth with our audience to get through to people, to convince them to participate with us and talk to us and really interact with us. And so we have a couple of choices. And this is a great little piece of information. Jessica put this together. Jessica, I'm going to let you explain this because you do a superb job of talking the audience through this slide.
Sure. So we have one more of kind of the business case of why video actually works. So if you think about in 72 hours, the average human can retain 10% of text. So think about, it's kind of baking season. Everyone's making their holiday cookies. I'm particularly not the best baker. I'm not very patient. But think about if you were going to go bake something. So maybe you're going to bake a chocolate cake, and you had your grandma's recipe on an index card, and you had all the ingredients listed, the basic directions, how hot the oven should be, and the basic idea of how you mix the ingredients together. So, over 72 hours, you would retain 10% of that text. Now, add in images, and you'll retain 65% of it. So maybe you can see, okay, the batter is supposed to look like this. The cake's supposed to look like this when it comes out of the oven. This is the type of pan that I'm supposed to use. So you can get some other cues from the images that you see. Now, add in video, and you retain 95% of that. So not only are you able to you see, hear, you can get an idea of what it could feel like by the way that maybe the way that it's stirring. You could also take in things that maybe are relevant to you, but maybe not other people. So for example, the technique that's used to create the chocolate shavings, or maybe the way that the person featured in the video is whipping the icing. So you can take in different things that are relevant to you that may not be relevant to someone else, and may not even exactly be explicitly talked about in the video, but you're just visually taking it in. So another example of how moving across something, you're learning a new skill, you're trying to do something new, and why video can be so effective.
Yeah, pretty amazing, isn't it? I mean, and Jessica, the thing that strikes me that's interesting about this is, I mean, for you especially, this really rings completely accurate and true, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even matter. I mean, anything. I think anything that I'm doing, I necessarily will look at a video if I can. So whether it's just accessing a recipe or maybe going to a news site, if there's a video, I'll look at the video first. 2-minute clip that'll make me decide if I want to invest my time in actually reading it. And then I know, Chris, you approach it a little differently. You like to read the text first, then maybe you'll watch the video. So it's all about learning preferences, but understanding how people are taking things in and kind of the brain science and adult learning theory behind it can help us make our programs more effective.
Yeah, exactly right. And so, which gets us to the next piece of this, and Jessica teed that up perfectly for us. So, sort of, if you think about adult learning theory, adults learn really, really well when several factors are in place. We tend to be, by the way, we tend to be motivated to learn. That's not always widely accepted, but adults are motivated to learn when we can make a connection between what we want them to learn and improving their life in some way. At work, it's improving their job performance, making their job easier, making their job more effective, helping them make more money. Okay, if we can connect those dots, adults typically perk their ears up pretty well. Adults bring their life experiences to work. They tend to be goal-oriented, their relevancy, they tend to be practical, okay? Adults also learn really well when we can provide information to them in short, targeted bursts of content, okay? So if you think about short-form video and how does it relate to adult learning theory, short-form video, it's self-directed access. So respects their time, lets them pull content to themselves when they need it. The ability to observe, especially in scenario-based types of resources, it lets them learn from observing the content of others, lets them observe in a whole range of possible video-based reinforcements with the lectures, with text, a whole range of interesting ways that content can be presented that really tie into the ways that brain science pulls information together for us and ties it together. The short bursts of content on a single topic work really, really well in that feedback loop. Remember the whole idea, those of us who've been in instructional design for a number of years, we were taught to chunk information. That was the idea that we built courses and content in 5 to 7 minute pieces on one simple, on one topic. And then we bundled these chunks together, strung them together into a package, and then we had a 1, a 2, or 4 hour course, okay? Well, if you think of short form video as a standalone chunk, then this all starts to make a lot of sense. And remember the chunking, the idea was the short-term memory, 5 to 7 minutes on a single topic. It's easy to convert that into long-term memory. It works. It absolutely works. The science, we've proven that scientifically. In short-form video, when you take in the ability to recall information, the way we prefer video, the behaviors, I mean, all of this works really, really well. And I love this, on the right-hand side of this short-form video, there's this, you probably heard of that 70-20-10 rule, the idea that we learn 70% of what we need to perform effectively at work on our own through self-study, through on-the-job training, 20% socially from others, and 10% formally. 10%. That's what we learn in the formal, traditional learning setting. So think about short-form video. It's self-directed. We can learn it on our own. We can do it at our own pace, when we need it, when we want it. And video gives us a chance to watch and observe the behaviors of others right in front of us and learn from what other people are showing and illustrating to us. So it kind of captures, in many ways, some of the very best elements of social and informal learning and brings it to us and makes it incredibly convenient. So, I mean, there's some aspects to it that I think we don't always recognize in this type of a resource rather. And then, you kind of continue to, work right down the line here in terms of how the short form video lines up with adult learning theory. I love the third one from the bottom. We tend to be very practical. We don't like interruptions. And I will be the first to admit, as a baby boomer, one of the things I used to hate about formal classroom training. They wanted me to stop my work, go to some workshop for half a day or a couple of hours. It's like, okay, you know what? I could be doing something really important. You're going to teach me this just in case I need it a month from now, 2 months from now. Short-form video lets me learn when I need it, when I want it, with little to no workflow disruption. I mean, again, the short-form video really ties in almost perfectly with all of the elements of adult learning theory. So how does all this link us to, you know, a really effective strategic connection between what we're trying to do with our employees in delivering content to them? Well, it absolutely does. The science, the adult learning theory, the short bursts of content, you know, 5 to 15 minutes at the max for short form video. That's really what we're defining this as. Totally works. You know, getting away from the old 3- and 4-hour e-learning courses and actually moving away from 1-hour e-learning courses, which, you know, a lot of content vendors out there are putting together. Visual input works best for the cognitive transfer from short-term memory to long-term memory. That is beyond dispute, scientifically proven. It works. I mean, it's absolutely a great way to do it. And then the preferred method for most people to take in new information, if you step back and think about it, and Jessica highlighted this really well just in her own experience, but the data proves that it's true. Just think of the amount of time you spend in a week looking at video, whether it's on TV or online. If you go to a website, what draws your attention? If you think about the construction of modern websites, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, even powerful news sites, CNN, sports sites, they're dominated by video for a reason. This is the method most people prefer to take in information today. It's not an accident that those sites are completely and totally dominated by video. So there's some additional research that really dives into the power of delivering content online. This is information that was reproduced in a really great book called The Terrible Twos of Learning, but the actual source of this was a special report on learning delivery. Online training works better than classroom training. It's 60% faster. We can, you know, reduce the learning curve. We showed 56% greater gains in learning, 40% higher consistency in presentation, all of which makes a ton of sense. You know, and then you layer that on top of just the organizational challenges that we're running into in companies today. Biz Library is not a large organization. We have a little more than 50 employees today, but we are scattered all over the United States, all over. And it would be virtually impossible for us to effectively deliver employee education and training in a classroom setting. We just can't feasibly bring everybody together at the same time in the same place anymore. We just can't do it. And we're a small company, like I said, but we are no longer out of the norm. More and more organizations have remote employees. I've been in the workforce long enough. I remember when telecommuting was a new thing. And in the HR space is, oh my gosh, should we let people telecommute? Oh, all the problems this is going to cause. And now remote employees are common. It is a routine part of most organizations' operational model. It's how we relate to each other. It's how we work. So if we're going to do this, if we're going to have a modern workforce, we're going to have to embrace a different way of training and development, and online training is going to get there. Jessica, I see lots of comments and questions coming. Would this be a good time to take some before we move into the next section of the content here?
Yeah, so a quick question from Aaron in relation to adult learning theory. So you mentioned that people are learning, but much of adult learning theory also states that people learn best by doing a task. Since there's not interaction in videos, how do you accomplish it? So you kind of alluded to it somewhat with the social and informal stuff, but that is Aaron's question.
Yeah, that's actually a really great question, and I wasn't real sure where we were going to go with this, but this slide actually begins to illustrate it fairly well. So, Aaron, if you think about it, and by the way, you're exactly right. one of the things that we've learned very, very clearly, and this is part of the genesis of the 70-20-10 rule, which, by the way, that theory was developed at a time when sort of formal classroom training dominated. So if you think about that, the whole theory was an effort to try to explain, why people didn't learn very much in formal classroom training. But you're right. We really sort of reinforce and emphasize our learning by doing. Okay, so short form video. Let's use the illustration on the screen right here as an example. This is a video about emotional intelligence, but let's say it's something about Excel or PowerPoint or Word or some other application that you've got working in your office. So you have a specific question about a specific task. You can look it up on a smart device, look and watch very quickly about how to perform a task, and then right there in the moment while you're working, perform the task right after you've watched the video. In other words, observe the behaviors, observe the correct way to do it, and then reproduce the task right in time. That's how short-form video accomplishes what you're talking about. We used to call that performance support, and a lot of training and development professionals insist on the distinction between training and learning and performance support. From my perspective, those distinctions make no sense anymore. It's learning in the time of need. If I don't know how to do something, or I'm not sure how to do something, and I can look it up, figure it out, and then apply it in the moment of need, isn't that learning on some level? I mean, why make some artificial distinction there? I've never really quite understood why we made that distinction, but that's really what that's about, is applying knowledge right in the time of need and having access to information that can help me answer a question that I'm asking now. And that's how short-form video works best. So some of the advantages of short-form video, it's lower cost and extended reach. And by extended reach, I mean that in two ways. It's geographic reach, that is, Jessica works at her home office in Chicago, I work in St. Louis. We can share a video and talk about, we could look at this video and share it and talk to each other about it later. So geographic reach, but also extended time reach as well. You don't have to be tied down to everybody being at the same place at the same time. The preservation of knowledge, particularly for employee-generated video, you can record questions and answers, record interviews, get people to share what they know. It's easy to do. It's a lot easier than transcribing information. And it's a great way to do soft skills training. I mentioned earlier how wonderful video can be for sort of observable behavior. Jessica, I'm going to give you a chance to talk to that point in just a minute. You have another great way to talk about that. But it's also a really good way to explain complex concepts. And this doesn't get enough play in the popular literature either. Again, with the video and then the illustration of complex concepts in play, in scenarios and in situations, it is an extremely effective way to communicate these ideas and then bringing them down into short, digestible chunks. But the soft skills and the difficult situations, Jessica, you have a really good way of explaining that.
So in relation to observable skills, Chris, is that what or observable behaviors? Is that what you're really? Okay.
Yeah, you're talking about sort of embarrassing situations.
Yes, I mean, if you're thinking about sexual harassment training, so we all do sexual harassment training, and maybe you want to show a circumstance or talk about a situation that may occur, and it could be really awkward to do a role play with employees in your organization, but maybe it won't be, but just talking about it may not be as effective. So if you're able to play it out in a third-party sense, so you're able to watch and observe the behavior and see it in a different workplace, so it's not necessarily quite so personal, people can maybe take more away from it, and they may be more apt to talk about it and discuss their own situations and maybe things that they've encountered when they feel more comfortable by seeing it acted out by someone else. And there's also less risk involved, so it's not as risky of a behavior. So maybe you're demonstrating slips, trips, and falls. You're not going to have someone go slip across the floor or demonstrate that. So some different ways. Right.
Yeah, good illustration. All right, so going back to what I talked about earlier about the traditional way to design courses, we used to create chunks. So we'd have all these different chunks of content, 5 to 7 minute pieces, and we'd string them all together and then bundle them and sort of, in this illustration that Jessica put together for us, we'd put them in a basket and we'd deliver that as an e-learning course to everybody. And here you go. Here's your course. So you take the course. And maybe it's an hour long, maybe it's 2 hours long, whatever the length happened to be. But you had a beginning and you had an end, and here's the course. But the problem with that is that's not really how we need and absorb information in the workplace. We don't always need a 1-hour course. Let me use a very specific example that I run into quite a bit. I do a fair amount of work in Excel, and I use pivot tables. I don't use them all the time, and I almost always need to look something up quickly to get back at them rapidly. So I don't want to go through a 40-minute or 1-hour pivot table course. I just need that one nugget to show me how to organize my columns or how to properly assign the values to the columns that I need. I just want to look at that one nugget of content. With short-form video, if I've got 15 videos that's a series on Excel, I can go find that one nugget that I need, get it, look at it, see it, apply it, deliver it, and move forward. And that's how this works. This is how we work today. This is how people have always actually needed content. And if you stop and think about, just think about how people ask each other questions out around your workplace. They don't go to each other and say, hey, do you have an hour to explain to me blah, 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 fill in the blank. Or, hey, do you have a second? I need to ask you a quick question. When they're asking each other questions, this is what they're needing. They need a quick nugget to help them solve a quick problem or answer a quick question. And we can participate in this conversation about learning by adopting a strategy of providing to them video-based content that is vetted, built by subject matter experts, that helps our employees move forward rather than leaving them to their own devices. So we really need to incorporate a video-focused content strategy into our broader learning strategies. And there are several things that we have to include in our thinking. We have to figure out first where we're going to get the content. Are we going to buy it, or are we going to build it? We have a whole webinar and an ebook on build versus buy, build, borrow, buy, in fact, because you can find, I mentioned earlier, the death by PowerPoint. There is some value in some content that's out there that's free, but there's some content that you should appropriately build, and we've got an example of some here in just a minute we're going to show you. But there's also a lot of content that you really shouldn't even try to mess with building or borrowing. Just buy it. That's sort of those foundational skills, those broad-based skills. There are partners out there in the marketplace that can help you build a foundational set of skills. Then you have to think about deployment and delivery. How are you going to get the content to your employees? But more importantly, as a big piece of that, is how will your employees absorb the content? And again, I've got an illustration for that in just a second. And then the last piece of this is marketing and support. And I know that a lot of learning and development professionals don't like to think about the term marketing, but it is a big part of our job today. We have to continually deliver messages about the purpose and value and importance of employee development and training to our employees in order to motivate them and show them how and why absorbing this content is important and will help make their jobs easier, and how we're going to provide ongoing support to our managers and supervisors to help reinforce the lessons that we want delivered. Okay? All right, I mentioned a second ago I was going to give you a couple of illustrations. This is one of the best specific illustrations of short-form video at work, and I love this quote from Jessie Bray. She was the VP of Training and HR at Roma Corp. The world is changing. People are changing. To be effective, our employee training is changing. To meet them where they are. And I totally love this. The upper left-hand image is a piece of trimming equipment, some meat cutting machinery. And if you'll notice, Jessica has circled a QR code in the just above and to the left of the machine. So what the employee can do is they can come along with their smartphone, hit that QR code with their with the smartphone, with the reader, and it displays a video, maybe a series of videos, but at least this video that shows them how to service this piece of equipment. And you'll see this video is 1 minute and 21 seconds long. It's just simple, short, direct, to the point. It's a video that they recorded themselves. So this gets back to the build, borrow, buy. They decided to build this content because it was culturally anchored to what they were doing. They had the subject matter expertise. It was important to them. So the whole idea was to teach employees how to do this, and they used short-form video to do it. But the other piece of this that I think is really important, this gets back to the delivery. How will your employees absorb content? This is a recognition that their employees have smart devices, they're using it, and here they are, they're recognizing it. So rather than ignoring that fact, here they are leveraging that fact to their advantage, to be a part of the conversation and say, hey, you know, here's how you're gonna do it. Really a fantastic success story and a great way to get at that. It's like I said, I love Jesse Bray's quote. So when you're thinking about your content, are you going to build it, are you going to borrow it, or are you going to buy it? This is just a rule of thumb based upon our 16 years of experience in the marketplace for small and mid-sized companies. Again, this is just a high-level measuring stick. Build about 10% of your content, borrow about 40%, and that's like blog posts, websites, links, ebooks, downloads, that kind of thing, and buy about half of the content. For larger organizations with the resources and the scale available, you can build about half your content, again, borrow about 40%, and then buy about 10% of the content. Jessica, anything to add before I move on?
Nope, Chris, I think we're good to keep moving.
Okay.
Lots of questions, but we'll bring them up shortly.
Okay, good. All right, so then we get into the deployment and delivery, and this is a critical piece of this. There are 3 vitally important factors that you have to take into consideration: the demographics, behaviors, and technology surrounding your workplace and your culture. Demographics. Are your employees going to be technology resistant, technology open? Are they technology literate? And don't get too hung up on the age demographics too much, okay? There's this prevailing myth, I think it's a myth, that baby boomers are all technology resistant. That's not really true. I'm a baby boomer. I am not the most technology savvy person in the world, but I'm also not technology illiterate. I actually really like a lot of technology tools. I've seen technology make my life a lot easier over the course of my working career. So if technology works for me, I'm really happy to use it, okay? So just think carefully about the behaviors of your organization. What is the technology that you have available, okay? So this is all really important stuff, which is going to help drive a big part of your marketing and support work that you're going to need to do within your organization. Jessica, I love this marketing piece of information you put together. I'm going to let you talk about this.
Sure, happy to. So most of the time, the large or big challenge for most organizations is to get employees to participate in training. So the biggest obstacle is we don't have time for training. Either we're too busy, or we have billable hours, or it's just not emphasized. So one way you can get over that is to emphasize training that's incorporated into the workday. So, for example, these 2 pieces of like marketing flyers, and these could be also email templates. And if you want them, just let me know in chat, and I'll email them to you. There's PowerPoints that you can customize. But so, for example, beat the 3 p.m. slump. So why not send out an email of the week saying, "Hey, learn something new. Take a break from your day. Take your brain away from the task that you're doing at hand, and get into something else. Or why not learn something new while enjoying your morning coffee? So emphasize these different points of learning, that it's not always going to be a 2-day workshop. It's not always going to be a 1-hour classroom course, and just look at some other things. So we're not saying that only one type of training modality works for everyone, but just consider the different ways that you can appeal to different employees.
Yeah, this is a great case study that Jessica put together. I'll tee this up, Jessica, and let you finish it off. But this ties right into what Jessica was talking about making learning, sort of finding interesting and creative ways to work it into your day and making it not disruptive and making it something fun. So with that tee up, Jessica, I'll let you talk about this because I love this story.
Right, so this is from a client of ours. They're a dental insurance call center. So the biggest challenge for a call center group is they're constantly taking incoming calls. So it's close to impossible to really get any sort of training while they're on the clock. So like I said, it's a challenge for a lot of organizations. So they came up with this idea of called tag training. So one call center employee is off the phone for 5 to 10 minutes and they do a short training video. And once they complete the course, they then tag their cube neighbor, and it's that employee's turn to take that same training course while the first employee gets back on the phone. So they carry the tag game throughout the entire call center, and all the employees go through the course. And they pick courses that they're entertaining for employees, so usually they'll get something out of it, but at the same time, there's either humor involved or it's entertaining. It's just a break from the monotony of taking calls the entire day. So it gives them opportunity to learn something new, and then it can also have little impact on their service levels. So at the end of the day, they have a conversation about the course, what they liked about it, what they could take away, and what they can apply. So again, another way to start to think about how to weave some training opportunities into the workflow for your employees.
Yeah, there's so many things about this that I loved. I mean, then having the discussion at the end of the day with the manager participating and everybody sort of sharing what they learned and what they got out of the same resource over the course of the day, it's just a really creative way to get content in the hands of employees in an environment that we would normally not associate with, sort of the flexibility and freedom to do that. That's just a really great way to get at it. But the thing I loved about that story is it really is a great illustration. In many ways, we're really only limited by our imaginations, or sometimes our lack of imaginations, for interesting and fun ways to get our employees engaged in training. All right, Jessica, I'm going to be quiet and turn the session over to you and get a quick drink, and then I'll be ready to tackle some questions. Looks like we've got some pretty tough ones, too.
Yeah, lots of great questions. So before we get into those, I have a couple of recommended resources. This is actually a series from Biz Library on creating great business videos. So if you're interested in trying to incorporate some video into your own training program, this is a 26-course series. They're all short videos, so anything from like 4 minutes to 11 minutes in length. So they vary in from creating the business case, which a lot of it we've laid out today, to more of the technical aspects, so what you need to know to create videos in your organization. So again, it's a 20-course series. You're welcome to try it out. It's included in the Biz Library collection along with 7,000 other courses, so both short-form video and more traditional e-learning courses. It covers more than 25 topic areas, and it's set up to where your employees get unlimited access. So again, if you want to try out any of the courses from the Creating Great Business video series or the Biz Library collection, I'll put a quick poll up, and I'll leave it up throughout the question and Q&A period, and just let us know if you're interested. Or you can also let me know through chat. Sometimes you can access the polling through the mobile app or your cell phone or tablet. All right, so lots of great questions, Chris. Let's see if I can summarize. A lot of them are challenging the effectiveness of video. So let me grab one to kind of tee things up for this.
Well, I'll tackle one if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because there's some really great observations and questions, and it really speaks, I think, to the level of the audience today, by the way. So Myra has a really great comment and observation. Says video is really best for what is known as transactional training. You can take an isolated task and observe it, then reproduce. But video for a whole process is very weak, which is the reason why jet pilots have to go through a simulation rather than watching a training film before being in the cockpit. Exactly correct. Totally right. I couldn't agree more. And this gets back to the whole point of having an effective, well thought out, appropriate learning strategy and learning content strategy that meets your goals. So for pilots, you're exactly right. Ultimately, you have to put them in a simulation. Are there things that pilots could learn from short-form video? Absolutely. But in order to master the skill necessary to effectively pilot an airplane, you are exactly correct. So I don't want you to think that what we are suggesting is video is a cure-all or end-all. It is not. Video training works well for some types of training, but it depends upon the objectives and what you're trying to do. So yeah, Myra, great observation. I could not agree with you more. You're spot on. All right, Jessica, keep going.
All right, next one from Mabry. So you stated that short videos, 5 to 10 minutes, are most effective, but you can't completely cover many topics in such a short amount of time. And what about people who have weak computer skills that may usually prefer an instructor? Also, what do you do for these longer courses?
Okay, there's actually 3 different questions weaved in there, maybe, and they're all legitimate, by the way. So I'm going to tackle them kind of in reverse order. So the weak computer skills and what to do for longer courses. That's one of the beauties of short-form video. Short-form video doesn't require a lot of tech savvy or computer literacy to successfully start and complete. You have to be able to find the video and press a play button, and that's it. That's all you have to do. That's one of the reasons that I really like it. It's one of the things about that I think is so compelling. Okay, so in terms of longer training challenges, the other piece of this, and we have several examples in our library where we may have a topic that has 8, 10, 12 videos in a series that kind of go together. But use my example earlier of Excel. Maybe there's 15 courses about Excel basics. I don't necessarily need all of them. I only need 2 or 3 pieces of it. And that's usually how that works, where we have a series of courses together, and then the employees can take from start to finish or take the courses in the order that they want. Again, going back to the effectiveness of adult learning theory, letting people direct the pace and tenor of their own training. It's, again, one of the great things about short-form video in general, and one of the great things about our collection in particular with thousands and thousands of videos on 26 topics. You've got the kind of breadth and depth and selection necessary to make that type of approach work really, really effectively.
All right, one more question. This one's from Sandy. So we do software training for clients and employees. What are some recommendations for using video for software training? Is it more performance support? Can it be used for learning an entire software, or is it blended?
Well, it can be used all 3 ways, Sandy. That's actually another really great question that gets back to sort of understanding the current mastery level of your audience, where you need them to go, and what are the objectives. So, again, think about how to break up the software, all right? You probably don't need to put together a 2-hour course, but you probably have various elements of the software that can be broken up into finely well-defined, easy to digest, easy to understand, simple elements, various pieces of the software. Here's how you do this, here's how you launch this. And those can be done in short-form video and made available in individual pieces. That's how I would recommend you get at that, and it works really well. We just went with good grief, Salesforce. I can't believe I didn't draw that quickly. Salesforce is a new CRM, and they do their training exactly that way. There's a lot of discrete pieces of content for various parts of it, so you can go get the exact piece that you need and look at it. It works extremely well. And again, I think that's one of the great features of the solution that we have put together for you in the marketplace. If you wanted to give our content a try, Jessica's got a poll up there. Just click I'd like a free trial. There's no obligation for that. and you'd get an opportunity to see the series of courses that work well and get a chance to see short-form video for yourself and how effective it can be. Would encourage you to take a look at that and see what you think. But that's how you would get at that. But yeah, it's short-form video for software training can be extremely effective.
All right, one more quick question. This one's from Scott. So do you have any strategies for finding good quality borrowed content?
Yeah, this is where we can really earn our keep as learning and development professionals. Because one of the things you don't want to do is just sort of turn your employees loose, just kind of wild on the internet. This is where kind of curating content becomes extremely important. So you have to start at the beginning. What are the topic areas that we are trying to cover, and what are some authoritative, solid sources for this content? Where are some leading authors who are thought leaders that we can track down? And that's where I would begin. That would be the first place. The second place, Scott, to be perfectly honest, would be a collection like Biz Library offers, where we have so many thought leaders who have provided videos, checking out, for instance, Kevin Eikenberry. He provides some content to us around new manager, new supervisor training. Some of this is from Bud to Boss. Finding a thought leader like that within our content collection and then going to their blog, going to their website would be a great way to blend purchased content and borrowed content. Say, hey, here's a blog post written by Kevin for our new managers. I'm going to make this available to everybody. So there's a whole range of ways to get at that, but that would be one really effective strategy. But identifying thought leaders, using groups at LinkedIn to find that, and finding those sort of blogs that really speak with some authority out there in the marketplace would be the places to go.
All right, I'll go ahead and wrap up for today. For those of you that are attending for HRCI credit, I put a link to the certificate in the chat panel on the right-hand side of your screen. Just a reminder, I'll also send a follow-up email. You should receive that in your inbox around 4 p.m. Central Time today. That'll include a link to the certificate, the webinar recording, as well as the slides. We hold these webinars every week, so I hope you'll join us for a future session. Webinar on Thursday is on taking the pain out of performance reviews, and then next week is on employee training and development, how to measure effectiveness and impact. All of our upcoming webinars are on our website at bizlibrary.com/webinars. So again, thanks for all the questions today. Thanks for attending, and thank you, Chris, for presenting.
Thanks, everybody, for attending. We really appreciate it.